I feel like the short bus just backed me over this morning.
We all feel like that. We were all limping through the stores, like hard to open up the tray drawer, like your hands won't pick up the bolt. You're like, it's so heavy.
Day 3 is maybe the hardest day we had, but it is also the most interesting.
So let's write out a list, and then I can just do the panel right now.
Oh,
the panel's gonna take forever. The panel's gonna take a long time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 4-day build challenge. We pushed through day 1, got everything framed, felt pretty good. Day 2 started getting a little hard and we started dragging, and now we are currently on day 3, which is basically just another way of saying, if you thought day 2 was complicated, try this. If you're viewing us for the first time, go ahead and check out this playlist right up here. That's the list to the entire series of this 4-video and 4-day process. Also know that all the materials we're using, from the wire to the HydroTurf to the accessories to the aluminum framing, all of it can be purchased on our website right here, along with tutorials and a bunch of other extra stuff. Check us out. This boat calls for quite a bit of accessories. It's maybe the most accessories that we have put inside a boat thus far all together. And under any other circumstance, I might be intimidated. Lucky for me, right before I went on this trip, I had just completed a boat that gave me the most insanely complicated wiring job ever. Not just because it called for a seriously high demand in electronics, but because it was so much electronics inside such a small boat. And that really prepped me, because I felt after doing a boat like this, I could pretty much do anything. I think the bigger flaw in this, though I made the drop-in panel and I pre-wired everything before I dropped it in to connect it all, is that I didn't make it able to come out. I hard put it in there, and that actually complicates things when you're trying to troubleshoot. I made the access panel on the side in the cockpit, and unless you're just a really small person with tiny arms, it sucks to really go in there and troubleshoot anything. So between this Alumacraft and that blue John boat that we wired in Illinois last month at Nate's shop, it came to me that a drop-in panel that is dry hatched and able to come out at will from the top is the best way to do it. So we'll be showing you how to wire this entire box. We are essentially making a drop-in harness, a brain with a spinal cord that connects to the rest of the body of the boat. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what we're doing. So while I take care of this, everybody else has got their tasks. Ryan is interviewing John.
I gotta take a picture of that. You know what I'm saying?
What would you shoot then?
So for starters, determining the layout for 12 switches. The most switches that I think any of us have ever ran inside one boat. I'm going to go ahead and carefully cut out a section from here for each panel. This can be done very tactfully with a circular saw, or in this case, very carefully with a cutoff wheel. You could even do it with a Dremel if you really wanted. That would just take a really long time.
We have 14 gauge.
You
like
need 4 pairs.
Oh, 2 pairs in the front, 2 pairs in the back. There's 2 pairs in the front already. There's 3 leads.
No, there's 1 pair in the front.
What do you mean?
Of wire.
1 pair?
Yeah.
Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative.
Yeah. So there's
There's only 1 pair up there.
There's 2 positives and 2 negative, 14 leads up front that are free. Is that okay for the front? Well, we can run back leads all day. It's just right there. The electric panel's right there. So that ain't no big deal. But the front leads, whatever you need ran now, that'll be a problem if we don't run it.
All that talk was because we have now decided to drop in a stereo, which complicates things a little bit more, but it can very much be done. In fact, we're going to drop the control module for the stereo inside this panel as well. Because all the tasks for this boat have gotten so complex and time-consuming and tedious, I've decided to take this entire wiring journey on myself, while everybody else tackles the sheer complexity of the boat build by itself. And we're pre-running wires here and there as we need, but eventually we're going to tie it all together. But before that can even really happen, we've got to set out this deck. So Nate and his crew go out to turf the boat. This is HydroTurf from our website. They make these crazy colors that in some other pictures doesn't look that great, but when you see it in person, you're like, man, that stuff looks great. They got a few wacky colors. They even got a blue one that's just like this with the same camo pattern. But today we'll be using their snow cam. We'll be applying it like so. When applying this, know that once you press down and you give that stuff to activation, it is on there. It is never going to come off. So make sure you place well and you plan it out right.
Oh!
It's still a set of 14s.
Things seem to be going well with the boat. But now for my part in this entire thing. We figured out more or less the layout we want for the spacing. It's gonna go like so. The only thing we won't have room for is the master switch, but we're gonna have to run that out somewhere closer inside the batteries, which is not a big deal. If you're making a panel like this from scratch, it's easier to cut 2 grooves and then use a drill bit to max out the sides. And if you really need a square edge, you can take a file and just file out so it's a complete square. You're trying to make spots for a drop-in hatch. With that flow right, it requires 1 independent switch with a bottom, so that's what we're cutting out now. Now for the remote control for the stereo system. It required a 3-inch drop-in for a hole saw. We had to actually file that out later to make it fit correctly, which wasn't a terrible deal. The bigger thing is trying to run all the wires, everything including all the stuff for the switches and everything that doesn't require a switch. Everything still needs power. We have planned based on a list that we have that we need 16 to 18 leads. We have just 18 spots between both bus bars to pull this off. The 12 gang will cover all the basic boat electronics, and the 6th gang will be specifically for the 3 fish finders going inside the boat. Since we pre-marked with a marker where we want the wire leads to go and meet up with each end for the fuse block and bus bars, we are now going ahead and pre-drill all those spots.
Most of his time in the back of the boat.
Okay, so the speakers are going up there.
Yes.
The speakers are in the back, and the head's staying here.
Yes.
Okay. So really, then we don't need 3.
What he ran was what the other guy ran.
We only,
from
I mean,
box
according to him, we already had two pairs.
2 pairs.
That are going to, and then we have 1 pair for the nav lights, and then we have 1 pair for the fish finder. That's all he wants up there. So unless you want to run extra leads, because you already kind of cut them, just so he has extra wire.
Yeah, we can run.
The 3.
We didn't put that side down, rivet that side down yet because of that. So if you're gonna run that, just go ahead and run it.
Yeah, we'll just run 3.
We'll just label it as extra with the label.
I decided that after looking at it, running a bunch of holes there to guide the wires in with the fuse blocks that close together was not going to work. So I'm just going to cut out a solid channel where the wires can kind of free float in and out of there. That way when we actually attach those wires on both sides to each fuse block, they won't bind. They'll be fine. This works out pretty well. Now to just deburr everything, that way there's no sharp edges that are going to cut the wires over time as the boat shudders through the waves and makes its movements down the road on the trailer. After some suggestions from the crew, we all decided that putting a piece of turf inside this box will not only make it really nice, but it will also give the wire a cushion to bind against while it's sitting in there, and it'll take a little bit of the stress off from the metal edge.
gonna be able to get the connectors to come out? And
That's why I drew that big hole. See a slot?
well, I'm just saying that, you know, when the heat shrinks on it, it makes it stiff.
If we bend it while it's still hot, then it'll form.
Everybody here in the crew is a little critical of my design. I don't think any of them have really seen it before. And I ultimately have a design in my head, but sometimes it doesn't quite come out into fruition the way one would think. So far, though, it's looking good. We're out of space on this panel, so between the live wall timer and switch, or the master switch, we chose to put the live wall timer. We think it's the most important thing to be protected, as you can pretty much put the master switch anywhere close to the batteries and it'll be fine. This is the Fluorite live wall timer, which includes a pretty generous and probably the best timer on the market, along with a switch that goes to on, off, and timer. This is a great addition to have because he has 3 graphs that are going to drain a lot of power, along with all the LEDs and everything, so he's got to conserve power somewhere. Has a pretty tight fit, that switch. We had to keep taking it out and reworking it with a file to make sure the cutout equaled the hole for the interface. But once we got that in there, it fit pretty nice, and then it's ready for wiring once we get to that point. We have these awesome custom carbon fiber logoed panels that we sell on our site. We're going to go ahead and pre-drill holes and very carefully countersink to take the associated hardware. We're going to go ahead and drop these panels in.
What did you do?
So all said and done, that was pretty easy. It came out pretty clean. We have everything we need, and it's going to accomplish everything it needs to do once it gets dropped in the boat. Now comes the more tedious part of wiring everything. Because it's extremely stressful to try and do this inside the boat, we're going to do it outside the boat and then just drop it inside the boat. And then we're going to have to worry about connecting everything there, but at least we'll have had this part out of the way. What we're doing is we are prepping a bunch of leads, and we're going to be running those from the fuse blocks to the switches. And then back and forth, and any other additional leads we think will be convenient or beneficial to run from the panel itself, dropping into the boat, we will. But it's just a series of running stuff back and forth, remembering where you did stuff, wrapping it with a label maker, and pushing forward.
Brought to you by Mr. Fireant Official himself.
At last, I finally get to join the three of us. Those two started the entire Tiny Boat Nation with me. Meet John.
Yeah, get some photo ops.
One of the last things I have to wire up is the live wall timer itself. It gives you verbatim instructions on pretty much how to do the entire thing. The only thing it doesn't really give you clear instructions on is how you need to run the ground from the timer box. I essentially splice the ground from the timer and the ground from the pump. I pre-ran a wire lead from the main fuse block bus bar combo running all the accessories. I left that one just hanging in that cluster there. Eventually, I would connect it to the live wall timer itself. And that just leaves room for what we're going to do with the negative leads. For one, we have to keep splicing out duplex and separating the wire because we ran out of individual strands of wire. So if you're wondering why we keep cutting wire, that's why. I make my own negative ground lead from the yellow 14 gauge marine wire. I run it to the negative male terminal on that timer switchboard, and then I splice that wire and the wire leading to the actual live well pump itself into one. Then I run the wire from those both spliced into right directly to one of the fuse blocks where the negative leads go. And that's how you take care of the ground. Everything else from the instruction manual, the flow right live well, is fairly simple to understand. Splicing it like this just simply allows us to run power from the main fuse block all the way through the timer and into the live well pump itself, so we have complete power. So we're going to go ahead and run extra long leads for this. This will be the first set of extra long leads we run because we know exactly where it's going to go. And it'd be much easier for us to drop in and then eventually run these extra leads through a conduit somewhere and then connect them to the live well pump. And now for the rest of the leads that are going to make up the last of what we refer to as a spinal cord. This is 8 gauge ink marine tin copper wire. This is the wire that we run to the actual fuse block bus bar combos. This is what gives the entire panel power. Power to run everything, power to run the entire boat. These are tin copper battery lugs. These are what we will be using to connect it to the bus bar and also to the batteries once we get that far.
How much is the length? I mean, the batteries are right behind it?
Yeah, there's gonna be one here, probably.
Are the batteries going to be over here?
No,
I mean, that'd be the greatest place to put them, right? So
they won't fit underneath of there, I don't think. They're gonna have to go.
Really?
Yeah, we looked at this the other day. The battery will slide under, but I don't know that the post can go under with the covers. So they're gonna have to be,
Yeah,
the
they're
posts are gonna have to be
back, huh?
here and here. So probably 5 or 6 feet on them.
All right.
Alright, so we are on the verge of completing this. We have finished the wiring part, and now all we have really left to do is make sure all the switches are properly labeled, make sure everything else is good, do some final checks with quality assurance, and then really clean up the bottom of the wires, because those things, now that we added new wires and everything else is cleaned up and loomed and zip tied, we have to do the same to these. And once that's done, we get to drop the top lid on and attach that in, and once that's done, we can drop that thing right into the boat. And then a whole nother project starts from that. But, you know, let's not blow it for now.
You're gonna come up and do the wiring on my boat too, right?
Huh?
You're gonna come up and do the wiring on my boat too, right?
Hell yeah, dude. Collab. Build collab. I'm all for it. Threaten me with a good time. gonna make it. Look at it. She took the whole day today. It was like a whole day of labor to make one of these.
Yes.
Overall, it was a fairly successful day, but because of how tired we were and how much we dragged on before we actually started moving, we're still a little behind schedule. And that is kind of terrifying because there is one day left. And though it looks like we're almost done with the boat, the hardest part of exception when you're doing a boat like this is knowing that right when you almost think you're done, you're not even close. It's going to take us forever to even see if we can pull this off despite how far we are today. Tomorrow will be a true testimony of what we're going to do. So we're going to get some sleep, we're going to carry on and see if we can pull this whole thing off. Wish us luck.